Good evening. Welcome to the Finance and Operations Committee in-person and virtual meeting for Tuesday, November 26th. I'll now turn over the Finance and Operations Committee meeting to co-chair, Mr. Neil Desnoyers.
Thank you, President Fields. Mr. Rogers, please begin with an overview of your agenda items for this evening and continue right into the first agenda item.
Sure. Tonight we have two agenda items. The first is the 2025-26 budget presentation, where we're going to discuss the preliminary budget versus an accelerated opt-out. We will be asking for board action. So the conversation will be focused around the Act 1 timeline as it relates to both the preliminary budget and the accelerated opt-out resolution. We'll review historic data as it relates to the Act 1 index. And we'll also, based on that information we'll provide it, the district's going to ask the board to move forward with one of the following: either a resolution authorizing the proposed preliminary budget display and advertising, or an accelerated budget opt-out resolution. And again, that's board action. The second item is a transportation update, which will be informational. Mr. Marvin Lee, our Director of Operations, will provide an update, or will provide an overview of the Department of the Transportation Services. The presentation will include an overview of operations, notable trends, and the district's efforts to address challenges and improve the safety and reliability of the transportation services. At this time, we'll roll right into the budget presentation. So again, tonight we're presenting the 25-26 first budget presentation of the year. We're going to discuss the preliminary budget process versus the accelerated opt-out resolution. So first up, we'll go through and review what we actually know at this time, which is the 25-26 applicable Act 1 information, the Upper Darby School District Act 1 historical data. In the end of the presentation, we will review how that timeline, the Act 1 timeline, how we adapt it to the Upper Darby School District schedule of board and committee meeting dates. So really at this time, and this is very typical of this time of the year, we don't know much going into the budget process. The most finite information that we have is specific to the Act 1 index. So currently for the 25-26 school year for the budget, our base index is at 4%. Our adjusted index is 5.8%. This past year, or the current year we're in right now, the 24-25, you can see was a base index of 5.3% with an adjusted of 7.9. So it has decreased slightly. So with those numbers, you can see we go back about over the past 9 years, showing the district's actual tax increase, the base index, and the adjusted Act 1 index. In yellow, that is what was actually approved by the board for each budget year, going from anywhere from 0% up to 3.01 with this current year 24-25 school year budget. In the past 9 years, there are only 2 years where the board approved a tax increase that exceeded the base index, which obviously means we've never come close to the adjusted Act 1 index, which is important to present here because that is part of the process of trying to make a decision on the preliminary budget process or the opt-out resolution. That being said, we have been and continue to be confident that we'll stay at or below the base index. That is always our goal going into a budget. But I will say that at 5.8%, we're very confident that we will not come out with a budget that would need to exceed the 5.8%. And why is that important? If a district chooses to exceed or believes they're going to need to exceed an adjusted Act 1 index, you're required to go through the preliminary budget process. And that opens up the option of being able to go out and, for different reasons, whether it's for special ed costs or retirement costs, the state has a process where you can go through and actually exceed that index. In our scenario, and again, for the past 9 years, we have not even come close to the adjusted index and would not predict that to be the case in the given year. So really, in this process, when we go down the path and we've done the opt-out resolution my entire career here, we're committing as a board to not exceed the adjusted index. And again, I'll go back a slide to be clear, or 2 slides. So and this would be the district administration recommendation to go down the opt-out resolution path, the board would be agreeing that they would not increase taxes above the adjusted index of 5.8%, which we are confident, again, as an administration, that we'll be able to present a budget below that 5.8%. The goal, again, is always to come in even below the base index, try and do our best to keep the tax increases as low as possible while still balancing the needs of the district. So what does that look like from a timeline perspective? Because that's really what we're laying out here is what are the next presentations and how are we going to present the budget over the next few months, 6 months or so. So in a preliminary budget, you could see the first step would be in both scenarios at our meeting next week, the December 3rd board meeting. The board would have to either adopt a resolution authorizing a proposed preliminary budget display and advertising, or the opt-out accelerated resolution. So if you go down the preliminary path, what would happen next is no later than January 30th, we would build the budget, we would publicly display the preliminary budget, we would hold a budget presentation at the December committee meeting, and then have the board vote to adopt the preliminary budget February 11th, which would be the projected date of the February board meeting. On the other side, on the right-hand side, which we are recommending, the opt-out resolution. Again, we would ask at next week's board meeting, the board adopts an accelerated budget opt-out resolution. That then pushes us out to the April committee meeting, which is, over the past few years, this is how we've gone through our process. We take from really all the way through December up to that public meeting in April, the committee meeting, and we hold all of our budget meetings, and we go through and build our budget, and that's when we would have our first proposed final budget presented at the April committee meeting. We would ask the board to adopt the proposed final budget on May 13th. We would come back in May and June and give 2 more presentations on any updates that may come before us from the state, or any changes internally and externally that require an update publicly to the board, at that May committee and June committee meeting presentations. The projected date would be the June 17th committee meeting, which we would then have a special voting meeting following that committee meeting, same way that we've done it over the past few years, and ask the board to adopt the final budget that night on June 17th, 2025. So at this time, does the board have any questions?
We've seen Dr. Rogers' base index is going down like 4%, and adjusted index is 5.8. So this is our better positions or heading for?
So the base index is calculated by the state, and it's provided to the school district through the Act 1 process.
Okay.
So the base index is what is actually the Act 1 index for all school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Okay. And then from there, based on the different factors within each local municipality, school district, the base index is then potentially adjusted. So there are school districts who their adjusted index is the same as the base index. So there are school districts throughout the Commonwealth where they can't increase taxes without going through the preliminary budget process at 4%. The districts historically, because of economically and our aid ratio within the district, our adjusted index is and has been higher than the base in every given year.
But it's still better than previous year, 24-25.
It depends on how you look at that.
Yeah, right.
So if you wanted to increase taxes more, it's not better because you're limited to 5.8 versus 7.9 in the previous year.
Right.
From a community's perspective,
Right.
if you're saying it can only go up by 5.8 versus 7.9, yes, that perspective could be perceived as a positive.
Right.
Now, I'm saying that as someone who has to be fiscally responsible. I'm in charge of making sure the district's being fiscally responsible. Most people in a situation where you're looking at how can you drive your budget, one of the biggest factors and ways that we can increase revenue in a school district is local revenue. The one thing we have control over is the tax.
Right.
And that's the tax increase.
Right.
So from a flexibility perspective, a higher base index and a higher adjusted index gives more flexibility for balancing a budget.
Okay.
I will just reiterate, at 5.8% and 4 even at the base, and where we are and what we know at this time for the district's budget,
Right.
we still feel confident that we can go down that opt-out path, and we'll do our best to keep the budget increase hopefully below that base index.
So, following question. The last 9 years, like last year, we increased the highest rate in the last 10 years. So our community is like most of the community. They came to me last year. They why increase, blah blah blah. So and our most community is like paycheck to paycheck. So I requested like we can cover the other way, not increase the taxes in future. Like not much. Like
So if you look at the screen that's presented right now,
right.
we've done our best to keep the percentage increase as low as possible. Our preliminary budget actually came out with, or our first budget, the proposed final budget came out with over about an $8.8 million use of fund balance as presented, was not sustainable. When we went into the final budget, we were able to maintain the tax increase, but bring the use of fund balance down to closer to $4 million.
Okay.
But you also see over those 9 years, we've actually averaged less than a 2% tax increase.
Right.
So that has been our goal, is to try to use or go with the lowest tax increase possible while still balancing our budget.
Right. Thank you.
Given what we know about the possible state of our country, are we leaning on a more conservative budget?
So typically when we come out with the proposed final budget, I am way more conservative when we come out. I'd rather come out with a better final budget than what we present initially. You also gather more information, so you hope that whatever you're projecting at those times, you're able to gather more and feel more confident in whatever we're coming out with the final budget. So with the idea that there's a potential for federal funding to be cut, ironically enough, when you look budget to actual for what we got from the state this past year, was roughly $10.5 million net positive on our budget. Mind you, we budgeted a $4 million use of fund balance. If you look at our federal funding, if you include IDA and all title funding, it's $10.2 million. So if our federal funding went away, all of the things that we had planned to use the extra state funding for, to be able to start looking at how can we creatively work with our unions and work towards Dr. McGarry's goals of paying people and improving the facilities. Something will have to give to balance the budget. Hopefully that's not the case, but at this time we don't know. So with whatever information we have by the time we bring that budget forward in April, if it's not clear cut, my recommendation would be to stay as conservative as possible, because the last thing you want to have is find out, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and we're digging into our fund balance and we're not going to be in a sustainable situation. But if Dr. McGarry wants to add anything.
Yeah, conservative is an interesting term with this. I think this team that's been here for long enough has seen this cycle of good days and bad days. In 2008, 9, 10, 11, there was stimulus money, it was cut, and it was draconian. I think this team has tried to build a system. There was a wise saying that, you don't build a house on sand, and we're not trying to build a house on sand so it gets washed away. So we were very careful about using pandemic money or any money and adding people, adding. Our goal is to keep our people, compensate our people, fix our facilities, and not get washed away if a storm comes, so to speak. It's not a great place to operate or live, but that's what we do. Every year we go out with a very conservative request of staffing and resources that are there to make ends meet. And we'll continue to do that and have a conversation. In order to balance your budget, to Mohammed, to your question as well, as far as taxing and how do you figure it out, I think was part of your question. There's only a few ways you can do it. Staffing, creative scheduling are the only two ways you can find internal mechanisms to reduce your budgetary costs. Programs, people, that's unfortunately what happens when you have to look at that. And we have built a system to not reduce programming for kids. So we will figure out through creative scheduling or otherwise how to stay afloat and figure things out, worst case scenario. That will be our plan. So we'll come forward with conservative planning and making predictions, which you're right, Desiree, will be the worst case scenario. Because there have been times when we found out that title funding was cut in the summer after a budget was already passed, Title II or Title III funding. So we'll keep that information out there and figure out how do we do it. Craig's job, will be then to figure out the money once we figure out the programming. But a lot of that comes from the staffing and the programming side of the district and scheduling. The reason why we don't have a middle school schedule like a lot of middle schools do is because those teachers pick up another section. We don't have true teaming anymore. And that's as a result of 2008, 9, 10, 11 stimulus money being cut. So we'll talk about that when we get through it, but to your point, it will be a conservative process.
Not so much a question, but just a statement. Director Mohammed had mentioned earlier, that one way to look at that adjusted base index is that it's lower than before. But I'm also remembering something that Dr. Haig would say all the time around this time of the year. That's literally just the state's excuse for being able to say we don't have X amount of money to be able to equitably pay for what your schools need, and this is how much you're going to have to take from your own community. And personally, and I think I might speak for a lot of board members, if not all, of course all, because that's why we're here, it's kind of incredulous and a slap in the face that the state continues to do this to us and all school districts, seeing as how they had literally been sued for this exact reason, not equitably funding, on top of passing budgets late, significantly late, which makes our planning significantly more difficult than it has to be. So I'm just appreciative of this team and the focus that they have to be able to have a responsible budget, but I'm just voicing, once again, just a lot of frustration with the state government and the lack of respect that the education profession is getting, and we're seeing it in the budget. The state budget, not ours.
Thank you, Director Warsavage. Any further questions? Okay, I think we can move to the next agenda item.
So at this time, I will hand over the transportation update presentation to our Director of Operations, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. My name is Marvin Lee. I'm the Director of Operations. Transportation generally is not of people's favorite topic to talk about in a board meeting, especially now because it has not been easy. But it's important to discuss to have the conversation now. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present this evening. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to give you overview of the operations, give you an update on what we have done to improve the services, and hopefully, if you're as optimistic as I am, you'll sense a glimpse of hope after the presentation, after a quick presentation. In the overview section, I'll discuss what we do and how we do in the Department of Transportation. Then I'll break down the department into 3 buckets. They're going to be demand, supply side, and process, procedures, and technology and equipment. There are about 15,000 students registered in our student information system, and the department transport about 5,300 students per year. What we do and how we do in transportation is generally governed by Policy 810. The quick summary of the policy is that elementary school students has to be K through 5 must be 1 mile or more from the school to be eligible for transportation. Middle school, you have to be 1.5 miles or more, and high school, more than 2 miles. If a student has a special condition such as special education, medical conditions, or homeless or foster care, the student can be eligible for transportation services. The policy also recognizes the SEPTA student fare card system as an approved means of transportation, and policy specifically prohibits transportation to and from babysitters and the daycare. The total number of transportation fluctuate each year, but there are approximately 5,300 students a year. That includes charter, public, and non-pub. Take a look at the total number of students and the schools that we provide transportation to. Approximately 70% of the students are going to public school, and we have about 1,500 students going to 16 charter schools and more than 100 private schools. It means our school buses are going to more than 130 schools each day, AM and PM. Last year, we used 79 school buses and 24 school vehicles. Other than regular to and from school services, transportation also provides ESY in June and July of each year. That's about 50 routes, and the transportation also provides approximately 900 athletic and field trips to our students. And for special education students, we also provide option trips to local supermarkets and other public areas. You may recall I talked about 131 schools. That means that we have to manage 131 calendars. Last year, we had schools that ran 143 days and 193 days. And the daily transportation requirement changes each day because each school has different schedule. And those 131 schools also has their own bell times. The bell times are extremely important because the bell times dictate the sequence and the stop time of each route. It's usually a challenge to get those bell times from the schools because we usually ask for the information early on, but we usually get it until the school opening. I'm gonna try to explain this pretty quickly. So ideally, if you set up a route in the beginning of the year and the route is running relatively well, for this particular route, we have the arrival plan time of 8:01, and we are arriving to the school at 8:09. To us, our standards, that's pretty good because we have to make, for this particular route, we have to make 7 to 12 stops based on the day. And that 8-minute delay is usually because we have to wait for the parents to come out with the students. So we have to wait on the street. So the scenario that I'm presenting here is that if everything is perfect and everything stays the same throughout the school year, everything is great. But what if we have another students in location A that we have to pick up additional student? And it becomes a problem for the transportation because the route is already pretty tight and some of the students are already getting picked up really early in the morning. So when something like this happens, we have to make adjustments to the routes. And whenever we are making one adjustment to the route, and the following students in the stop are getting affected. One more complication we have to work with is the school district in Pennsylvania are required to transport up to 10 miles outside of the school district boundary to provide transportation to non-public school students. There are literally hundreds of schools within their boundary, and the school district try to accommodate the students with the school bus services, but a lot of times the SEPTA pass is the only option that we have. One of the major issues that we are facing in transportation is the growth of curb-to-curb pickup requirements. More than 85% of the students are picked up at the corner stop. However, there are some instances that we have to provide curb-to-curb pickup and drop-off, and those instances could be special education, homeless, foster care, or early intervention students assigned by the DCIU. Curb-to-curb generally requires bus assistant on the bus, and the driver and assistant are required to visually confirm the students are received by the parents in the PM, and most parents are available to receive the children, but some are not. In the morning, oftentimes the parents wait for the bus in the house, and our drivers are forced to wait for the bus, wait for the parents to bring the students out. If they're not ready for the bus, parents usually come out and ask us to wait for a couple minutes. It generally takes 3 to 5 minutes at each house to pick up the students if we provide curb to curb. Because we have to provide, we have to visit each school with the big buses in tight streets, we are limited to assign no more than 15 to 17 students on a bus instead of adding about 40 to 50 students on a bus. Special education department and other departments in the school district, we are working very closely with them to manage the growth of the curb-to-curb stops, but there are limits to what we can do. This page, I'm talking about what the department has done to manage the demand. About 5 years ago, the administration performed a comprehensive hazardous route review with PennDOT, and we found approximately 600 students were, in fact, not eligible for services but assigned to the bus. PennDOT is the only agency in the Pennsylvania that can designate street as a hazardous. And there were a lot of pushback from parents at that time, but the school district moved forward with the removing of those students with a 1-year notice. So we are transporting about 600 students less than before. We also adopted clear boundary map. In the past, department used to have to debate with parents about the distance between the school and the house because everybody was using the different mapping system. Now we have a clear boundary mapping system in the system, in the routing system. So if you're within the line, you are a walking student. If you're outside the line, we are providing buses to you. So the debate still happens with the parents, but we are managing the situation much more easily than before because we have a clear boundary map. I wanted to thank you to Dr. Lambert for creating those boundary maps for us. Data quality improvement over the last several years was also huge. Transportation has been working with the central registration, student services, data department, and technology department to clean up the data in the student information system and streamline the flow of the data. We still have some work to do, but all departments are dealing with a much cleaner student data than years before. One way of fighting the increasing transportation demand is to introduce SEPTA public options to our students. Transportation currently offers SEPTA cards on a voluntary basis to our secondary school students, and the participation has grown from 50 in the years past to more than 300 this year. I would like to thank Dr. McGarry for arranging PM dismissal buses from high school campus to 69th Street station every day at no cost to the school district. Informing the parents about the transportation priority was important and necessary. Before the school year started, school district informed all transportation parents that school district will prioritize our special education students and public elementary school students over other students in case of staffing shortage. Transportation is also constantly working with other departments, other partners departments to improve the services for our students. Now I'm going to discuss the supply side of the operations. We're talking about school buses and drivers, but mostly about the drivers. It is not difficult to find horror story news articles about national school bus shortage and how bad it is. I'm not here to tell you that everybody's going through the same thing. We are now no exceptions. Rather, I'm here to tell you that how we were able to improve our situation with the staffing, and we continuously push forward to make it better. I understand you may not feel that way yet, but we are trying very hard to improve the situation. So easy one first. I'm trying to go fast. That's right. The easy one first. With the growth of the student with the special needs, such as special education, early intervention, homeless, and foster care students, we had to increase the school vehicle fleet by about 10 vehicles. Thanks to our CFO making the funding available and Joe McGilvery for making the purchases available, we were able to purchase 20 vans over the last 2 years, and we were able to strategically place them to help our routing situation. This slide is probably one of the most important slides in the presentation. We ended the last school year with 73 school bus drivers, and as of this week, we have 87 school bus drivers. That's a net addition of 14 drivers. One thing you have to think about it is that we lost more than 20 drivers in the same period for us to get net 14 net gain. That means that we had to hire more than 30 drivers in the last 5 months. That's a lot. On paper, we needed 83 drivers to be fully staffed, but we have 87 drivers on staff right now on payroll. Similar situation with the bus assistants. Transportation assigned bus assistants to special education routes and kindergarten routes. We ended the last school year with 27 assistants. We added 14 more to make total number 41. We need 40 to be fully staffed. Assistant attrition rate is not as high as it was school bus drivers, but it was a major challenge to also hire that many people. It was a great job by the hiring team, especially Jackie from Transportation, who constantly interviewed candidates to get to where we are. I also listed the current number of the school bus trainees. It is important. It's very important that we maintain a strong pipeline of the trainees, because Transportation is constantly losing drivers in the tune of 20 to 30 each year. For us to maintain the staffing level, we continuously have to hire those trainees and train them into school bus drivers. Before 22-23 school year, department used to lose 7 to 19 net drivers, but we found the ways to improve our hiring performances, and I'm happy to tell you that we're doing much better than years before with the hiring. And how did we make it happen? Thanks to the board, the superintendent, and the CFO, raising the hourly rate from $19 to $20 per hour for the school bus driver was absolutely huge to get more interest from the job market. The school district also increased the rate for the bus assistant from $12.55 to $15 an hour. Also, in the contract, We have a perfect attendance bonus. We have about 50 bus drivers getting those bonuses on a monthly basis. And also we added new attendance policy in the contract, which was really huge. We implemented a point system to discourage daily absences. Before last year, the department used to experience 8 to 15 daily absences, but now with the new policy, with the new contract, we are seeing about 4 a day. Not great, but still a lot better. Employee morale is very important in transportation. Our drivers and assistants work only in the morning and afternoon, so they need a place to rest in the middle of the day, usually between 10 to 2 because they have nothing, there's no assignment. So having a clean and comfortable lounge, is a big deal for our employees. With the renovation of this building we are in, we were able to provide a better driver lounge with a clean bathroom. Transportation team also holds an employee appreciation cookout, and we also provide awards to drivers to recognize their hard work. We've been also investing in our fleet. The robust training, probably one of the most important aspects for our success, coupled with the hourly rate increase, was huge in the last couple of years. The instructor coordinator is a very important concept and position in the Pennsylvania school district industry because instructor coordinator controls the training schedules and they handle paperwork on behalf of PennDOT at the school district level. So the instructor coordinator is basically an agent of PennDOT in our school district. There used to be only 2 instructor coordinators in Delaware County, and Upper Darby School District used to work with the Haverford School District to handle our transactions, but Emily, our assistant supervisor, became the instructor coordinator this year, and we are handling our own transactions, which is a big deal. I also want to publicly thank Pickle from Transportation and Judy from HR, and I'm sure Dr. Norelli will agree with me, but if you see net 14 increase in transportation drivers and net 14 increase of assistant in 5 months, it means Pickle and Judy had to deal with probably hundreds of candidates to get to where we are. Thank you to Judy and Pickle. You may wonder, how hard can it be to become a school bus driver? It's not that easy. You have to pass the basic employment screen. You also have to go through special physical test and drug test to be eligible to apply. And you have to stay on the drug test pool for random testing after you get hired. Once you become the trainee, you have to go through 14-hour mandatory in-class training. You have to pass 3 different exams for PennDOT to get a permit. Then you have to pass the road test to finally become the school bus driver in Pennsylvania. You may wonder, why aren't there school bus driver schools? That's because school district and school bus companies are only entities that can train school bus drivers in Pennsylvania. On average, it takes usually about 3 to 5 months for trainees to become fully licensed drivers. And we sometimes lose candidates, but if they stay with our program, we convert about 80% of our trainees to become school bus drivers. That's a great job by our trainers. One more thing, transportation currently rely on Radnor School District to use a testing site on the road test, but we are taking steps to become our own PennDOT testing site. Becoming a testing site will save us money, and we'll be able to control our own scheduling of the test as well. Here's a quick illustration of how the data flows from the central registration to parent GPS app. So when a new student registers with the Upper Darby School District through central registration, the data is captured into the student information system. In case of special education student, their information is captured in IEP called PowerSchool. PowerSchool system send the information back to the student information system. And that information is captured and was sent to the routing system on a nightly basis. And the routing system analyzes the data on a nightly basis about who's new and who's out. And based on those results, the routes are adjusted on a nightly basis. And then we also send the same data, the new data set on a nightly basis to the routing system, the GPS system, and the communication system. So in case you're wondering how to access the GPS system as a parent, there's like 1 to 3 steps, pretty easy steps for you to do, which is you can go to where'sthebus.com to sign up. You basically need the basic student information to sign up. Then you can go to your phone, download the Where's the Bus app on your phone, and you can simply sign in. You'll be able to see the location of your child's bus, and you'll be able to see the child's the route information. It's the technology. It's the technology device. Sometimes we lose signals, but GPS generally works okay, works well, and it's a great resource for our parents. Parents of approximately 32% of eligible students download this app and using it on a daily basis. All right. Currently, we have the current contract with the routing system and the GPS system expires on June 30th of next year, and transportation team is evaluating feasibility of having all system procedures and system into a single system. I listed 13 different processes and procedures that we maintain on a daily basis. We think we can consolidate everything that we do into a single platform, and having a single system to control all aspects of our operation will streamline our processes greatly. We're still evaluating those multiple proposals from multiple companies, but we will be making recommendation to the board through the transportation resolution in the coming month. It's the last page, and I added this page because it's the last section of the presentation is about processes, procedures, technology, and equipment. This slide is about the equipment. There was a big meeting about a year and a half ago with a group of special education parents, Dr. McGarry, special education team, transportation team. One of our takeaway points from that meeting was to improve how we handle the special education equipment in our school district. We decided to solve the special education equipment issues once and for all. The special education team principals and the transportation team completed market research to find out what's available in the marketplace. We also performed the field testing, actually installing them on our buses to test them out. And we selected a standardized unit for our school district. We even created a catalog with pictures, sizing guidelines, and the installation guidelines to our schools. Then administration, Dan Kinch's team also created a drop-down menu in the PowerSchool IEP system for the equipment and sizing options to accurately capture those requirements. Finally, transportation team also ran a training session to inform the drivers and assistant on how to properly install those units on our vehicles. It was John Paul's project, and all stakeholders collaborated really well with each other and successfully finished the project. It was a really job well done. That really concludes my presentation, but I have a final message to our students, families, teachers, and principals, and central administration. I understand it could be extremely frustrating when you have to go to work in the morning, but the bus is not coming, and it's Friday afternoon, you have a doctor's appointment, the bus is delayed, so you are stuck in the school waiting for the bus. I know what it's like because I was one of those parents waiting for those buses. My son will probably hate it if I say this, but my son was on a bus for more than 3 hours and peed himself. It was embarrassing for him and really frustrating as a parent. Thank you so much for your patience, and I know the improvements that we are discussing this evening probably is not enough yet, but we're working very hard. We have a really hard working, dedicated team behind the operations, and we'll continue pushing until we achieve the goal of providing safe and reliable services to all our students. That's it. Thank you.
Just before we go through questions real quick, if I could just say, Marvin, John Paul, Logia, and Emily Duncan, when you see Marvin, John Paul, and Emily walking around central office in the afternoon, I always tell John Paul, thanks for staying. We had people quit within like 3 hours one time, and we had people last a week. Somebody lasted 2 weeks. John Paul has lasted a long time, and every day I look at him and I'm like, thank God he's still here when I see him in admin.
Thank you for the comprehensive presentation, Mr. Lee. Are there any questions from board members?
Yeah.
President Fields.
I'm going to echo Dan's sentiments. Not so much a question as a note of appreciation. I've noticed that Marvin gets like the most thankless jobs in this transportation. Who gets yelled at more, other than Dan? Who gets yelled at more than transportation? Whoa. Hold on. I said other than Dan. I mean, it's facilities use and updates, and like he's got to talk to community groups that are like, we want to use these facilities, and he's most of the time the one bringing the bad news when it's not us. Yeah. And then transportation, that's every day. And and you look at some of, people are like, well, you just got to get the kid to school. Or, also, was it 130? Like 130 schools in the area, right? Because, 10 miles, private school, we're responsible for getting them there. So I do really, really, really appreciate that, and appreciate your ability to be patient and calm and respectful when dealing with people who are like they're at their most frustrated point in the day. And so, and I think people should keep in mind, like, transportation has come a long way from when Neil and I first got on the board. Transportation has come a long way. And if you're ever trying to do a good job, you're always looking for a way to improve. So I know Marvin and the team are always looking for ways to improve, but it's definitely come a long way. And it's also critical that people keep in mind. I saw the 2 mile thing, and I know I've had people say to me, and I've heard people say, like, it's 2 miles, but I can see the bus from my house. So why can't I just put, my kid on it? Like, I could just walk there, and it's because it's a real, I don't know, delicate house of cards getting this thing to run every day. And once you start adding people to it, it just falls apart. It just falls down. So appreciate you keeping a hard line on those distances, and I appreciate that you come here every day and making this stuff work. So thank you very much.
I was one of the parents. I'm going to say it. Me and you had a lot of emails, and I've been that parent in the morning who the bus hasn't come, and I'm trying to get to work. So I do understand both ends of the spectrum. I have seen tremendous growth, especially with the communication. Even if the bus is not, if it's not coming, at least it gives me enough notice so I can do something quickly to figure something out. So I do appreciate that piece. On slide 14, you said it was a consolidation of all the systems. That's what you're looking to do. Would that change the app then? Would it be a different system?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a different system, but it's going to be as easy to sign up.
Okay. And then my last thing was just, I saw the equipment piece. I want to thank you as a parent with a child with special needs. The harness does help because it keeps him in the seat, so he's not distracting the bus driver. So that equipment piece is very important. So I just wanted to lift that piece, but thank you.
First one is a comment. I know I reached out to Dan because Westchester Pike used to be deemed by the state as a hazardous road. It no longer is not. So we have children and families trying to get from Highland Park area as far down as State Road, crossing Westchester Pike to get to Highland Park. I was surprised to hear that they deemed that no longer a hazardous road. So I just would implore everybody to contact the state because I think it's very dangerous. I cannot park. My nonprofit is on Westchester Pike. I cannot park and get out my car. I have to, it has to be in timing with the light because I'll get smashed on Westchester Pike. So if it ever happens to me, that's what happened. So I just say that we have children and whose parents are dodging Westchester Pike to try to get to Highland Park. But it's not necessarily on the district, it's on the state to make that a hazardous road. The one question that I did have, when you were looking at staff and how many staff bus drivers we have, and we were in a surplus, does that take into account any substitute drivers, or are those used as substitute drivers in any cases?
Yeah, we do have, if everybody comes to work, we will have 4 substitute drivers, but we usually have about 4 to 5 daily absences. So those drivers are covering those routes.
Good, thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you do. This is one of the biggest things that I hear about is the transportation and how it takes so long. I think the presentation was amazing, especially to detail how many schools you actually have to go to, because I don't think everybody gets to see that. So moving forward, whenever I hear someone complain about transportation, I'll tell them to tune into our YouTube and see this presentation to understand exactly what you're going through to try to make this work for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, bringing so many things tonight. We learned so many things today. It's a lot of informative. I was to one question, like for the driver, bus driver, is it like full-time job or you paying them hourly basis?
It's an hourly job, and we guarantee 4.5 hours.
How many? 6 hours?
4.5 hours a day.
4.5 hours
Yeah.
a day. And another following question, like I don't know this. We have for our community. They always questioning, like sometimes bus coming like 40 minutes, 1 hours. I know how you deal these things, and next time they getting better. This is good. And another following question is this the ticketing. They're getting a lot of tickets nowadays. They're complaining on what they should do, how they solve this issue, where they're gonna go and how we complain to answering them these tickets. There's so much tickets nowadays. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we do have those perceptions, especially from like Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly is one of the schools that we are trying to improve, and we will improve that. I think we have enough drivers to be able to improve that. Those are Charles Kelly routes, and we will improve them. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think like morning is mostly okay. I think the PM is the more the problem, but I think we should do a better job, both AM and PM.
Okay.
As far as the ticketing is concerned, if you read most recently, another school district, I gave this in the Friday update to the board, Montgomery County School District, I will not name the name, they just moved to putting in the same process of the ticketing system in place. Marvin has the information. We'll provide that in an update to the board, the number of tickets that are going out each month and the number of contested tickets that are out there. But it's working. It's showing how many people, and I don't want to get President Fields worked up about slow down and not going around buses, but the number of people that are breaking the rules and the law, going around buses in unsafe situations that are in a hurry to get somewhere it's not okay. I'm happy if you want us to, Mohammed, if we want to go down to a certain community and explain the process, I'm happy to make myself available with you to go down to that community and let them know the process, what's going on, and how to handle it.
And they always angry, email me, call me 10 p.m.
Yeah,
What's going on?
I get that. Yeah, so I do want to say that, thankfully, our administrators, our directors, Manfrey and Simone, and our principals, we get those emails. You guys should not be handling them. Direct them to us, and we'll address them. Our job is to deal with where the operations might not work out great, and we'll handle those conversations. You shouldn't be getting those calls.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any public comments?
There are no virtual comments.
I don't see anyone in person. So, Mr. Rogers, would you please review your agenda?
Sure. So we had 2 agenda items tonight. Our first is board action, which was the review of the 25-26 budget. And what we're asking the board tonight again is to choose between the resolution authorizing a proposed preliminary budget display and advertising or the accelerated opt-out. The administration's recommendation is to move forward with the accelerated budget opt-out resolution. And I'm asked for the board's, whether or not the board would like to move forward with that.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have agreement to move forward with that.
Okay. We'll have that as a resolution next Tuesday under the finance and budget report. The second item was the transportation update, which was informational, where Mr. Lee provided an overview of the Department of Transportation and the services provided. Again, informational.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers, and I'll turn it back over to President Fields.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noyers. A motion is in order for adjournment of the Finance and Operations Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.